Welcome, everybody. Today, to start off the proceedings, we have with us Neeraj Gupta, Chief Advisor for Technology and Investment at Invest Alberta Corporation, for our opening keynote. Neeraj will be sharing his insights on tech leadership in an accelerating world. Welcome, Neeraj. Over to you.
Thank you, Mitali. Um, Thanks for the opportunity to speak about Alberta. Uh, since I am assuming that most of the companies over here are technology led, I'm sure that you are looking at the entire paradigm about Canada and also Alberta. So I'll first of all talk about Canada. One of the very interesting aspects of Canada is that in last 10 years, uh, the innovation paradigm in Canada was already very high. I'm sure that you know that Canada is very well known for oil and gas, energy, gaming, AI, machine learning. However, with so much of inflow of tech startups to Canada, even from US, in last 10 years, you will see a lot of good companies from fintech, medtech, clean tech have been coming to Canada and exploring Canada not only as a client base but also as a tech base and research and R&D base. And Alberta, in particular, in last 10 years, have been doing a lot of work when it comes to the technology-backed startups. Uh, it- Canada has a lot of very good avenues in terms of tax related good and very favorable tax regime in Canada, but in particularly Alberta is probably one of the lowest when it comes to taxes. However, another important aspect is your research and development. There are different kind of grants available in Canada. Uh, for example, a grant called SHRED, wherein your R&D expenditure and your employees who are doing research and development, up to 60% of their salaries could be reimbursed by government. So there are different kind of grants that are very um, uh, favorable for startups. Let me put it that way. When it comes to Alberta, Alberta in last particularly 3 years has seen very huge upsurge in the tech led economy, primarily because Alberta was very strong in oil and gas and energy. And oil and gas and energy, there was so much money that they could accelerate a lot of corporate venturing programs to help in IoT, AI, machine learning, clean tech, energy sector. So much that there was a lot of money flowing for startups to do innovation, which eventually oil and gas and energy companies could digest and help startup grow to the next stage. However, in last 3 years in particular, because of that momentum, now there are so many good startups that are coming uh, in Alberta, be it Edmonton or Calgary. Last 1 year alone, there are three startups which have raised anywhere between $50 million to $150 million, and these are the companies, SaaS-based company called Benevity, which got acquired in $1.2 billion by a UK-based PE firm. A company, a robotics and AI company called Etabotics, which raised $67 million plus got the grant from federal government called SIF, Strategic Innovation Fund, around $33 million. And then there is a company, a fintech company called Siemens. They got a huge amount of funding. And there are so many other tech companies, be it fintech, be it robotics, be it SaaS-based B2B startups, be it medtech companies, which have raised anywhere between pre-Series A or angel to Series B, C, D. And that shows a lot about what Alberta is ready to do. Their Invest Alberta was in particular formed to help startups and companies like yours to have a soft landing in Alberta and help you explore the entire market in terms of client base as well as in terms of R&D. So we have something called Alberta Innovates. So if you are setting up your company in Alberta, and if you're building a product, you have a huge amount of grant which is given by Alberta Innovates to sustain the development. There are several such grants which are available in Alberta. Because, and why I'm talking in particular about grants are when you are at the early stage startup, One thing is you're looking for angel investment. Second is you're looking for talent. Third is you're looking for a lot of other support. And other support grants become very important part of it. But apart from that talent, there is huge amount of talent. University of Calgary, University of Alberta, Tech Edmonton has such a good talent, and you can collaborate with them. You can do the joint collaboration and joint research with the university. If you are AI and machine learning startup, one of the largest AI ecosystems, among three largest AI ecosystems in Canada, in fact in North America, are one in Montreal called Mila. Second is Vector Institute, and third is in Edmonton called Amy. And this is a non-profit organization, a research-led AI machine learning organization, which you can collaborate with and help develop the product. If you are into IoT, robotics, hardware, then there is something called Alberta IoT, which is a very well-known consortium and can help you go to the next stage in terms of development and client base and understanding the entire ecosystem. There are different kind of incubators like Platform Calgary, Calgary Development, and Creative Destruction Lab, CDL, Zone Startup. It's a perfect ecosystem for any startup to flourish. And the best part is Alberta is very beautiful. It's very livable. I live in Alberta, and I am from India. I have lived in Sweden. I have lived in US. I have lived in India. And now my home is Alberta. And I can tell you that the amount of opportunities you have over here to flourish are huge. And we from Invest Alberta are more than happy to help you, support you in whatever ways possible. The other important aspect is the angel ecosystem. So Alberta has a very strong angel ecosystem. There are funds available like Valhalla Angels, and there are a couple of other angel funds like A100. These are the angel funds which are always looking for a good startups to invest in. In fact, in last 1.5 years, I have seen 5 new funds, not only angel but different stage of funds coming in Alberta, either started by Albertians or started by a lot of North American VC funds. So you have that perfect blend of research, support from the government, and the ecosystem, which is very much required for any company to flourish. And more importantly, I am seeing, like, I've lived in Bangalore, and in Bangalore I've seen the kind of companies and what has happened in 2005. Between 2005 and 2010, what happened and what kind of support, the kind of support the startups got, and the perfect ecosystem that led that upsurge of good startups coming in, and suddenly India and Bangalore becoming in particular the startup center of Asia. And that's what is happening in Alberta. That's very important for us to understand. And there are other aspects of Alberta which you probably will realize. So if you are a health tech startup, so one of the biggest health ecosystem is called Health City, and Health City is based out of Edmonton, and you can get a lot of support, collaboration. There are a lot of corporate venturing programs. Like in Canada, you talk about Johnson and Johnson Labs, J Labs. If you are into medtech, if you are into robotics or B2B sales and SaaS, then you can talk to Accenture Ventures. There are a lot of oil and gas startups. So if you're an IoT startup or different kind of startup which could help in oil and gas and energy, there are a lot of companies like Suncor and Husky and a lot of these companies that have a corporate venturing program. So I personally feel that after living in Toronto, after living in Vancouver, and after living in Alberta, Alberta is the best place if you are looking to flourish as a startup. More importantly, and the proximity matters. Like if you have business in US, so Seattle is just 1 hour flight from here, 3 hours flight is San Francisco, and Vancouver and Toronto are not very far. So if in particular, if you are looking at the international ecosystem, Canada is probably one of the best places. And once you establish yourself in Canada, you can grow yourself to US as well. I am also a chief strategy officer for one of the very big and large startup called Etabotics. And the one which I was telling you about, that overall in terms of grant and funding in Series C, we raised around $102 million. And we are Calgary company. We are Alberta company. Most of the businesses are based out of US. Most of the clients are based out of US, and we are getting all the support to do everything in US. And US investors really appreciate the fact that that we are based out of Alberta and doing so much of our work. If you're into manufacturing, probably Alberta is one of the best places. So all in all I can say is that if you are trying to tap to begin with North American market, explore Canada and in particular Alberta. Invest Alberta is here to help you in whatever ways possible. Me and a lot of my colleagues are personally ready to help you, and probably I'll get a chance to interact with a couple of you guys moving down the line as a mentor, and happy to provide you more information.
Good evening to everyone who's here in India, and for my guests, Val and Cedric, who I'm going to be moderating on this session. Good morning to you, both of you joining from East Coast, so that's cool. So so for the audience, I have been pitchforked into this session. I wasn't originally supposed to be the moderator on this one, but like I was mentioning to Val and to Cedric, any stage time is good and it is fun. So thank you, Mitali and Gaurav, for getting me to moderate this session. So interesting topic: industry, academia, and government, and the role that it plays in nurturing entrepreneurship hubs. We have two experts with us. One from a city-based economic development agency, and the other one an innovation entrepreneurship incubation consultant expert. So if you can quickly go between the two of you to have a short background about yourself. So, Val, if you can quickly kind of let the audience know who Val is.
Super quick. I'm a designer, and I've been in tech since the 80s. And I started to get into entrepreneurship back in 2009 when I was invited to come to Ryerson University to help the then President Sheldon Levy build an environment for entrepreneurs in a well-designed way. And it exponentially grew in 2-3 years, was already known as like number one in North America as far as a model for entrepreneurship. And I stayed there until 5 years ago, which I left when it was named, it was quite famous by then, but I thought it was very solid. And I noticed that we needed these kinds of institutions, these kinds of accelerators, incubators all over the world, and they really needed to connect to one another to really accelerate the growth of our entrepreneurs. And so I started this company called The Pivotal Point, and here I am today working with numerous incubators and accelerators right across Canada, from the Yukon all the way to Newfoundland, and then all over the world in Asia and Europe and North America. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Val. Cedric, a quick one from you.
Sure. Well, my background's not as interesting as Valerie here, but so me, just to bring it back, software engineer turned into a consultant, then economic development. My mandate at Montreal International, like you were saying, we're the economic development agency for Greater Montreal. My mandate was created a bit over almost 3 years ago now, which is really to help international entrepreneurs who are looking to come connect and set up in our beautiful city.
Great. So we have a designer by profession and a software engineer doing very different things than where they started out. But I think that's what is going to make this panel interesting, because I guess when you're talking of entrepreneurship, you're talking of a ton of things. And there's a very solid role that industry, academia, and government plays in creating that enabling fabric or infrastructure. And it's interesting, given the two of you, I mean, Val, straddling across industry and academia, where you spoke about oh, we have Jagat, the original moderator. So, hi, Jagat.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So, I was just getting into I was just done with the introduction, and I was just about to start with the question. So, perfect timing for you. I'll just skip this one and make it interesting for the audience stepping out.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. You can.
Sorry, I was struggling with technology people. So, I'm an ordinary man.
I'm handing over to you.
Okay. So, I would like to, hi Cedric and hi Val, how are you?
Good to see you.
So, I just want to share some of my thoughts on so we are today talking of academia, industry, government connect, and how it impacts competitiveness. See, ultimately at the end of the day, it's about competitiveness. So how I define competitiveness is efficiently creating goods and services that meet global market demand, leading to rising living standard for everybody in the society, and which is sustainable into the future. Right? So there are these four components. Now, when we talk of triple helix of competitiveness, which is about academia, government, and industry, how it affects overall competitiveness. It's a very critical aspect to understand. And in this, I will be asking you some questions, but what I want to also bring in one element. Is there an example in the world, or can it be done, of a transnational academia, government, industry, triple helix model of competition? For example, some academia in Canada, one industry in India, and one government, say Rwanda government in Africa. Can there be some kind of this transnational model where we talk of global competitiveness? We're taking beyond each of our countries. So maybe in times to come, that is something maybe you may want to throw some thought. So I will like to start with Cedric. So Cedric, as a FDI focused economic development agency, Montreal International is a perfect example of an organization that works with industry, right? And industry, academia, and government as a facilitator. How has this contributed to attracting entrepreneurs to choose Montreal as the preferred site of operations in Canada when they have looked to expand in North America?
Sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, if we can go back to the basics and say, well, when startups are looking to go internationally, and specifically startups, the number one criteria need that they're going to have to fill is to build relations with the local ecosystem, connect with VCs, potential clients, talent, or even develop innovation partnerships with university or research centers. Universities, they allow for startups to tap into the new talents and develop partnerships with professors and R&D projects to create partnerships in developing technology. The government is also present there with different initiatives, incentives, etc., that we'll be able to talk later, or also different panelists through this event. I know we'll be talking about it. But they're all doing a lot also of work in the background, funding incubators, accelerators, different initiatives to help nurture these startups locally. International entrepreneurs, so what they need to do is to build a network in the city that they're expanding or relocating to as fast as possible. And here in Montreal, it's the perfect mix, I think, of a big city, but that is small enough also to be able to map and connect with the different players quickly. The other day I was looking at New York City and the entrepreneurship ecosystem there and all the different organizations that are playing around in that ecosystem. And there were over 700 of them. So for an international entrepreneur who's looking to set up in a new city, open an office, and connect with the ecosystem, that entrepreneur can waste a lot of time mapping, going through the list, connecting with these people, with these different organizations, see if they could be of help or not. Montreal, I can think about maybe 100 organizations in total that are involved from up close or far in that ecosystem. So I would say Montreal International, we're here to help, and we're able to quickly evaluate the needs of these startups and entrepreneurs and see who they need to talk to connect with, in order to make sure that their trip to Montreal is a success.
Thank you, Cedric. That is a very warm response to opening up the subject. Thank you again. So while let me bring this Indian context. What's happening in India. If you look at government and then academia and industry, I call academia and industry as the foundation of competitiveness, and then there is government. So government to academia and academia to government is okay in India. Nothing great to talk about, but okay. Government to industry is also okay. Academia to industry is very weak. Now, here I want to bring in one thing. So, while as a UI UX expert with IBM for over 2 decades, and then setting up Canada's top-ranked university-led incubator, the DMZ, at Ryerson University. So you've been on the both side of innovation. Not many people are in that position. You've been on the both side of innovation, industry, and academia. So that's a very interesting perspective you can bring. So what do you reckon has been the role of government in the success of programs like DMZ?
So going back to the history of DMZ when we first started it, to be honest, it was a skunkworks project that was invested in by the university itself. So it didn't start with government money. It started actually in a very entrepreneurial way, where the president recognized that there was a need out there, called me in to help him, and we just approached it from an investment perspective. We're going to try this. It's a skunkworks. We're not quite sure what this looks like. And this was back in 2009, 2010. And so this is when just, a bunch of incubators were just starting to pop up, and they were quite conventional. And we did things in a non-conventional way. There really weren't government grants to support what we were doing at the time. However, we started to have a lot of success. Our reputation started to grow, and the government started to work with us, where we started to trade stories, and we told them what was so successful about what we were doing. A lot has to do with what you're talking about. It has to do with the connection between industry, between government, between academia. Yes, I want to add one more foot to the stool that you put in, and that's community. So where does the community fit in? And I'm talking about the local community. How can the local community really feed the experience that the entrepreneurs have to get them going? Because, and Cedric, I know you know this, that we kind of need to get the thing going, and then all of a sudden it starts to exponentially grow, and you get it going through the ecosystem, through all of your relationships that Cedric's talking about. And so government saw this. And so now the kind of grant types of opportunities that started to pop out had that in mind. So they were looking for those people, those incubators that were actually looking more from a relationship perspective to accelerate the growth of the entrepreneurs. And that's how government really, really started to come in. And by doing that too, one last part of it is also where corporates wanted to get more involved. Corporates wanted to be at the very tip of what was going on. Entrepreneurs now are at the tip. They're right there at the edge, trying new things. Corporations want their teams to be near there. So there's incentives to do that too.
Excellent. I like your community connect, local community connect, because I've observed in many economies that local community connect out of that triangle gets missed out. The local community doesn't know what's happening, so they get sometimes disconnected. You are right on that. And also the corporate part of it. That's very interesting. Thank you so much. So again, coming back to Montreal International, so are there specific advantages, Cedric, that founders, startups can benefit from by engaging with Montreal International? For example, access to incubator or accelerator programs, soft lending, tax credits, soft lending programs, or many other things which you may be doing.
So definitely going through us in order to be able to connect with the ecosystem is kind of, I would say, a stamp of approval here. So I've seen entrepreneurs trying to cold email, sometimes incubators, VCs, etc. Going through us would help open more doors, and I would say even waste less time. Now, the way the Canadian, also the provincial here, Quebec government works, there's no specific program for the international entrepreneurs coming and setting up here. However, there's a lot of programs, and I think it's also covered in different talks and panels here. There's different programs that are present for all kind of entrepreneurs looking to launch and start, scale, grow, etc. in Canada and Quebec. But the government here didn't take that approach of helping facilitating international entrepreneurs necessarily who are looking to scale. But there's different programs. I've heard, I forgot his name, from Invest Alberta also talking about, we have the same thing in Invest Quebec here in the province. So there's different programs also depending on what kind of growth they're looking for, how many people they're looking to hire, etc. There could be different programs that they could tap into. Now, to talk about all these programs, it could take hours and hours, because for each industry, for each specific set of talent, etc., there's different needs, and year by year these programs can change. Governments come and go, and people, different ministers get affected also. However, like I was saying, if they're looking to, and I would say that's really the number one thing I see for international entrepreneurs who are looking to open an office, etc., in a foreign city, going into an accelerator or an incubator, depending on the stage they're at, can significantly, and I guess Valerie can add to that, significantly, first of all, lower their risk of implementation here. Spending that 2-3 months, getting to connect with the VCs, getting to see if there's a fit for their solution, for their startup, in the North American or Canadian market adapt their solution. Sometimes here the way you pitch is different from international standards, I would say, or European or Asian, how they do business. So just to go through that 2-3 month or even sometimes a few weeks boot camp can really, I would say, highly help the chances of success for these startups looking to come and set a foot in North America.
Excellent, Cedric. I'm sure some of those startups who are listening will have got very good thoughts in their mind from what you've shared as programs. Thank you. So while I come back to you, so it's interesting. Just a few days back, hardly I think a week, our Prime Minister in India has declared a very huge startup initiative with a Shark Tank kind of a competition called Champions, Startup Champions, and they are trying to build this ecosystem. It's being done for the first time. So while, post DMZ, so you've been busy helping out government agencies and universities, colleges in setting up entrepreneurship hubs, right? And as far as wide as PEI and Niagara Falls. So what role do such hubs have to play in the broader picture of economic development? This is very relevant to what India is now trying to do.
So a really great example, I'm going to give you two examples. One's actually in the Yukon and the other one is in PEI. So PEI, I'll start with first. And this is where the premier, and this is maybe 6-7 years ago, was really looking into it. It's a small province. And it's an island, and they produce a lot of awesome food. And he noticed that there are some entrepreneurs, and there's a number of small incubators, but there wasn't a concentration, a consolidation of effort. And so as premier, he said, I want to do that. I want to create a hub, as you're talking about. It's called Startup Zone, right in the center of the city, so that people know that this is a hub. You can connect to it. I was an advisor there, and the whole team started to look at how can we connect the incubators and accelerators that are already there and invite more to really start to meet this vision that the premier had to have PEI be a destination for food. So when you think of PEI, you think of food. So he did it from a branding perspective, if you can understand that. And so he put a lot of effort and investment into making that happen. And the last 4 years, it's just taken off exponentially because it was looked at as a community type of endeavor. And so people joined in. It's a bit of a Sorry, I got disconnected for some reason.
It's okay. You're there now.
Okay, great. And so, I was just saying it's a bit of a barn-raising mentality where the whole community is coming together to ensure that this happens. And because of that, they became very successful. And the government was the support behind this, and the government agencies were the support behind it. Now, if we jump over to the Yukon, interestingly enough, the idea of what's going on in the Yukon, again, it's small territory, but it also has locations that are remote. So how do you create an ecosystem that has so many remote locations, small little towns and villages around, and then some larger cities like Whitehorse, to really be entrepreneurial and be successful? The government wanted to make that to happen. And to your point, it's like they connected the Yukon University to the corporates that were already there, to the entrepreneurs that were already there. There was a makerspace and other incubators there, and to the university. Together, they have now put in a center where the entrepreneurs know that they can go to. And now they're creating satellites in all of these remote locations to ensure that even locally, they're starting to create the environment that's needed to help the entrepreneurs.
Wow, this is wonderful. Your point about remote and the satellite, that is very so much relevant to India. India has this challenge that most of the startup ecosystem has come in urban areas, whereas 65% of our India's population lives in remote villages or smaller towns. So this is a very interesting example, and I'm sure startup Reseau will like to take all these lessons and connect you also to some of these initiatives. That's very interesting. So Cedric, I come back to you. And so, Montreal, so university capital of Canada, right? So that pretty much says what it is. But for our audience, Would you like to elaborate on it and touch upon key aspects pertaining to the talent ecosystem in Montreal?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, am I on mute? No, perfect. Okay. Well, first of all, Montreal has been scoring greatly in international standings regarding to uh, student capital city. I think, it's been voted best university city in North America, second in the world next to Berlin. Obviously, there's a lot that come into factor. Another thing that comes to mind also is has been voted also best city for millennials in the world. Second best. First is again Berlin. So in North America, we have a city where there's a lot of quality of life. The cost of living is also really affordable. The fact that there's those two languages, the English and French, you can study in both languages, also add value to that ecosystem that we have here. We have 13 universities in our territory, over 320,000 students, post-secondary students in our ecosystem, 35,000 of them that are international students. That is a really great number to see. And in terms of talent, there's over 180,000 tech workers in Greater Montreal. Now, I'll stop with the numbers because the numbers usually bore a lot of people. But what we've been working on also at Montreal International, we have also that mandate through our brand, I Choose Montreal, which is to accompany and help international students who are looking to find an internship or a job also in the ecosystem. So we're working also closely with the startup ecosystem and the bigger corporations to help these international students find that internship, find that first job here in the city. Now, in terms of, I would say also another thing that makes the universities here score highly is the collaboration that there is. And you've mentioned, how can we help more collaboration enhance? Well, a lot is being done right now in open innovation in different and trying to get that triangle of academia, big corporations, and startup work together on different projects, whether it's in deep tech, aerospace, AI, etc. There's a lot of different initiatives that the government is backing in order to help those three entities that sometimes don't usually talk to each other, right? But how to stimulate that. And that's one of the challenges that here in Montreal we're trying to tackle and see how we can help startups work more with the professors, the academia, and the big corporations to find solutions, to co-create, co-develop, etc. Everything related to open innovation.
Excellent, Cedric. Thank you. Now, after listening to your reply, I'm more sure that Montreal is the university capital of Canada. Thank you. So while ultimately for a startup, it is the bottom line is market. Connecting to market. So why should foreign entrepreneurs research and identify the right kind of incubator or accelerator and apply to them? Can they really fasten the speed to market in Canada coming from another model?
So I love your question, and I'm pulling my paper because I just wanted to remember the speaker just before us, and it was Niraj Gupta. So Niraj Gupta had a lot of awesome things to say about why. He was talking about Alberta, why come to Alberta, but he had a lot of great points. You come there because you're going to be helped to adapt to a culture. Number one is what's so interesting is yes, entrepreneurship is difficult as it is for an entrepreneur because you're starting from scratch, putting everything together, and you've got your lifeblood on the line here. Now take that and put it into another country, and oh my goodness, because other countries do business in a different way, different culture, different way of speaking, different way of presenting yourself. There's a lot of that. Plus the basics, because there's various laws that you have to do and that kind of stuff. So it's that much harder. So when you're going to another country, you want to look for places that are going to groom you. I use that word groom, to enable you more, to help you accelerate your ability to adapt to a new culture. A silly example, but I'll just tell you, because a long time ago when I'm originally from New York and I moved to Canada, you'd think easy peasy, culture is exactly the same. It's not. It's not. There was a bit of adoption that needed to happen. I really needed to understand how people spoke and worked with one another. Well, it's the same thing and way harder for an entrepreneur to be able to do that. So all that to say that there are special incubators and accelerators that do this very, very well. Cedric, you probably know many of them in Montreal, and we heard about Alberta. There's ones here in Toronto. There's this awesome organization called LATAM. It's run by Miriam Lazarte, and it was put in place. She is Latin American, and she is trying to bring Latin American entrepreneurs to come to Canada. She's in her 4th year now, and she really has created the connections that are necessary to accelerate the ability for these entrepreneurs to be able to be successful here in Canada. This is where we heard from Neeraj that we were talking about Startup Visa. Startup Visa is actually an incredible incentive for people to want to do this because it accelerates the ability to get in. Because it used to take 2, 3, 5 years to be able to get things started. Now it's a lot smaller. It could be as less than a year sometimes. It just depends because you still, as we were hearing, you need a work visa and that kind of stuff. But on top of that, and this is Cedric, you were talking about it, you need a place where people know this. They know that you're coming from another country, to learn the ropes, to understand through boot camps or whatever, and then there's certain aspects of working in Canada to learn that. And people want to come to Canada because it's also a gateway into the States. And so as you get better, I did say that there is a difference, but there's a lot of similarities too. And it is a gateway to all of North America. And so, I'll just conclude by saying that there are numerous incubators that do this. And on top of that, there's also numerous incubators that go for certain demographics. So that's also very important. So I'm now, actually, I work for a number of accelerators for women in tech, women in Main Street types of businesses, but also the Black community, the Indigenous community. So lots and lots of different communities. So there are different incubators with the demographic that might even make you feel more comfortable to come into the country.
Wonderful, Val. Thank you so much. In fact, while you were talking about New York, so in next few hours, my good friend Joe Biden is going to take over as the president, and my best friend Kamala is going to be the vice president.
Yes.
Right? So I want to ask this to both of you. I can start with Val. So in India, we were reading last 4 years that a lot of American startups were moving to Canada. And so what are your observations on that front? And because of now of the transition, how is it going to change, or what is your view?
Sorry, who are you asking this to, Jay?
Valerie.
Oh, okay. You know what? Yes, I don't know how to answer that really, because there was a disappointment with certain things, and there is always interest of people wanting to go to other countries. Yeah, I'm actually struggling with an answer to that. I don't know, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah, well, what we've seen over the last few years is American startups who can't retain the talent that they have. They're hiring international students, masters, PhD students also that are looking to work for their startup. But there was that risk with everything related to immigration. So we've seen a lot of different American startups open up offices north of the border across Canada, and have these employees in order to be able for them to work for the company, but also have that safe, I would say, environment regarding to their immigration, that they know that these policies that we have here in Canada, we're known as a welcoming country, a lot of immigration happening, etc., a lot of different communities, and also we've seen that with the previous, I would say, in the last 4 years. What's going to happen in the future, I mean, we'll see, but at the same time, I think our ecosystem here in Canada has grown significantly, and even our local startups, local entrepreneurs are able to have a lot more support, have a lot more resources than 4 years ago. So I guess time will tell with the US, but I don't think that in Canada we're worried or not about having these startups coming and opening up offices here in the city. And if they in Canada, if they want to come keep doing it, great. It adds to that talent pool. It adds to that knowledge that is being and technology that is being developed here. But if not, we're not going to close the country and go bankrupt.
Thank you. That's a great answer, Cedric.
Thank you. So, Wally, I heard in the last question you were talking about startup visa program of Canada. I want one question to ask you. So, can you start a company without a Canadian resident board member?
You can come in from another country, but you have to get a work permit. You have to apply, and you do not need to have a Canadian on your team as yet. But you absolutely need you need a work permit, and you have to. It's going to take a little while, but you have to meet all the requirements for the startup visa. The whole idea of a startup visa is to enable you to come into the country. Of course, we love when the startups, once they come in, they're hiring Canadians, of course. But when they first come in, they don't.
Okay, thank you. Cedric, you want to add anything to that?
I think Valerie has said everything. I think there's no magical solution either. I know working with entrepreneurs, they're go, go, go. They need everything solved by yesterday. They just need to know it is a great program. It is available in Canada, but like any immigration program across the world, there's documents that need to be filled. There's due diligence, if you want, that needs to be done, etc. So things will always take more time than we wish, but definitely it's a great program that we have here.
My last question to both of you. These super clusters in Canada, the super clusters, and the Minister of Innovation who recently quit, he was the very strong ambassador and votary of the super clusters. So what is how do you see that super cluster ecosystem at present?
It's an interesting question. Superclusters were put in there to really create a base where different entrepreneurs, very strong entrepreneurs, could come and gather together and utilize each other's strengths and that kind of stuff. It's semi-localized, meaning that people have to go to there or connect to that particular one. I actually think it was a really great experiment that's being expanded upon. I'm actually quite excited for what's going on. For instance, on the east side of Canada with the Oceans supercluster. In the Oceans supercluster, I'll tell you, every province in that area is coming together. Plus the stuff that's going on in BC, they're connecting as well for what's happening with oceans as far as energy and environment and all that kind of stuff. And I consider that they are coming up with a very successful way of working with one another. Other ones are having a little more trouble, but I think that's natural. The idea behind it is a good one. And there's a learning that's happening on how people can better collaborate with one another. And I'm actually very hopeful.
Thank you. Wonderful. Cedric, you want to add any words?
Yeah. Same here. I think it's a great idea. It's a great initiative that was launched a few years ago. Now it's just to see how we go from there, starting now. So how can we evolve that? How can we make sure that it solves today's needs and future needs? Again, like Malika was saying, everything. The ocean tech is an industry of the future. A lot more startups, a lot more companies are being conscious and also developing technologies related to that. Now it's just to see, are we still going to have those 5 supercluster across Canada? Are we going to do something different? It's just to see how things will evolve now.
Thank you. Wonderful. So that was amazing, I'm sure.
Welcome back, everybody. I think we had very good discussions today, the panel discussion as well as the keynote. And I think most of the people here have a lot of questions. We've seen your questions parked, and we will definitely be replying to that. Now it comes to our most interesting part of the program is what are we here for and what is Startup Bridge Canada 2021. So Startup Bridge Canada is a 6-week 6-week pre-market entry startup program, allowing up to 50 high-potential growth stage India headquartered startups to access and understand Canada and build out their North American strategy. We are seeking to select B2B software enterprise tech, deep tech startups that are well geared for an international expansion and looking to set up a base in North America. Startup Rich Canada is a mentorship-driven program comprising virtual workshops, keynote sessions, and access to a network of accelerators, founders, investors, corporates, universities, and economic development agencies. Over the duration of 6 weeks, selected startups will be engaged in 8 to 12 hours of cumulative interactions per week, thereby totaling in excess of 50 hours of live programming in addition to other resources. We have onboarded over 40 local mentors from Canada, including successful entrepreneurs, investors, heads of startup programs, former diplomats, and industry experts. To add to that, we have 15 local partners that will ably support the cohort. Our website, www.startupbridge.in, is informative, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to my colleague Gaurav or myself. For those in attendance, we strongly urge you to attend all the upcoming roadshows as well, as it will only help you to understand the market better and make an informed decision on applying to the program.